Hey, Diana, did you know that keeping your best people is easy?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast, the podcast for lawyers about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I am Marc Whitehead, alongside here with my second in command, my COO. What other titles do you have?
We can't say those.
We have a lot of titles for you. Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's up?
Hey, Mark, how are you?
What are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about stay interviews.
The stay interviews. Love this concept.
What is a stay interview, Mark?
So a stay interview is what I would call a preemptive strike.
Oh, that's a good call.
Yes, a preemptive strike where you go and basically have a conversation with your best people, the best people you want to keep, which, by the way, are the ones most likely to get picked off and poached by your competitors, to see what's going on in their life, see how they're enjoying their job, seeing how they're doing, are there any underlying dissatisfaction with the position? What can you do to fix it? What can you do to make their life better? How can you motivate them? Basically, how can you keep them?
Yep, so it's a concept popularized by Richard P. Finnegan, and he's written several books on the topic. So, fun fact, when you assigned me this book, we actually ended up reading different books because he's got a few on this topic, and I didn't realize I was reading the wrong book.
This was poor coordination on our part.
Yep, but that's okay. I think we got the gist of it.
Well, that means we've got twice as much knowledge if we combine our head, because you read one book and I read a different one.
That's in theory.
In theory.
In theory. So, but the whole idea is that everyone knows what an exit interview is, right? And
which is too late now to solve the problem.
Exactly. But it is a very popular HR tool that most firms or most of our listeners probably have some version of already in their scope. And so today we're going to talk about it's not the opposite of an exit, but it's the same principle of having a conversation, a candid conversation, hopefully with your employee about the same things, right? Did they have the best resources to do their job here? We asked that one during our exit. Right. I think it's been a pretty cool idea.
So the basic problem is this, which is that we put a lot of time, and I say we collectively, as in all of you law firm leaders out there, we collectively put a lot of time and effort into finding, hiring, training the best people that we possibly can, as we've referred to them in the past, our all-star team. The problem is that there are other people out there. I'm going to call them the vultures. There are vultures out there who like to come along and pick off your best people. After you've trained them up, after you've put all of your time and resources and effort into them, and, you have to fight fire with fire, honestly. You have to protect your back door, which is you need to make sure that you're proactively talking to your people specifically about how they're liking their job, what could you do to make their life better, because you want them to stay.
Yep, and so beyond your competition, I think it's incumbent upon all business owners to have engaged employees. And we've talked about this. The statistics are clear. Engaged employees do better work. So obviously here in our business, they provide better customer service. They call out less. It's just better for you to have, even if nobody comes calling on your best people.
Right.
You want engaged employees. You don't want just people who are phoning in the call to the client, especially in our business. Especially, I think most of our listeners are, probably some sort of PI attorneys or, and so your clients are going through a rough time. You don't want someone with no compassion, no empathy on the phone with your clients.
Right. So, this is, it may be a sore point with me because I've had a few of my employees picked off, you know, after you put time and effort. Now, so there's a statistic out there. We were talking about this in the pre-show prep about the cost of having to replace an employee. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the statistic was it costs somewhere between 6 to 9 months worth of that employee's salary to replace them. Once you factor in the time and effort of downtime, training
Cost
time,
to replace,
cost to replace, all of this stuff. Where did we find the statistic exactly?
SHRM, so the Society of Human Resource Managers.
So, fun fact, I'm helping one of my children write a high school paper, and I always say you have to cite your sources, so we're citing our sources now.
Absolutely, especially in today's day and age.
Yes, no you can plagiarize all you want as long as you cite your sources. That's what I keep telling my kid.
Well, and ChatGPT is not a source, so this was the Society of Human Resource Managers.
I will beg to differ with that because Chat will find sources for you. But anyway, we digress. This just shows you what I was doing last night, helping write a high school econ paper.
Good for you.
No, not good for me. Not good at all. Could have been
So
watching basketball game. But
I know you're surprised, but I kind of disagree. I mean, if an employee is capable of being poached, then good on that employee because we as the employer did something wrong. And I think that's the heart of today's podcast is a tool that we use and have used in different formats, both prior to EOS and now, and how we use the stay interview or some version of the stay interview to keep our employees engaged, not only engaged, but also hopefully less poachable.
Yeah. It's funny how you and I kind of take this from different perspectives. I look at it from the perspective of I don't want my people poached. You look at it from the perspective of you want your people to just perform the best they can possibly perform.
And be happy here. So hopefully they are. I don't want them poached either, but I agree. Yeah.
I understand. It's just we just come at it from a little bit different perspective. You come at it from a daily operations perspective, and I come up from a big picture perspective.
You're defense. I'm kind of offense.
Yes, exactly.
Is that not to go back to basketball? So anyway, okay. I'm excited about this one now.
Okay, well let's go. We'll block some shots and let's get it done.
All right.
So with that, when we come back, we're going to kind of go through the stay interview, how the book says do it, and then kind of how we have morphed from that and kind of developed our own set of processes. And with that, we'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
All right, Diana. So we're talking about the stay interview. Basically employee retention, employee satisfaction, maximizing our employees' productivity. How do we do this?
Well, we've done it in two different ways, before EOS and after EOS. And then, of course, there's the way that the book says that we should do it. So before we get to the way that the book says we should do it, so we just give everyone the way that Finnegan says we should do it. I know we talked a little bit about the why before in our first segment, but, the book says that poor leadership causes 60% of all employee turnover.
So it's my fault.
I think that we need to look at both sides of the coin.
Okay.
I think that he advocates for developing both, right? Because it is a conversation. I think that's the way you describe the stay interview in the first segment, is a conversation. And so obviously the best conversations have two engaged people. And so you can't expect, in my perspective, again, the advocate for the employee, to have your employee be completely vulnerable about the fact that they want to leave you before they have a real offer on the table, without having an engaged manager.
Right. And I have read, and I can't cite where I read this, but I've seen it numerous times, that people say the most common reason that they leave a job is some sort of dysfunction between themselves and their immediate supervisor. Mm-hmm. So, depending on what level of person you're talking about, in our organization, I guess I directly supervise maybe a dozen people in our organization, but everybody else is supervised by somebody else, not me. So, it's not only just about the top, but it's about that mid-level management, that we've installed within the firm. And then are they kind of taking all of this to heart? I will say, now you gave me some statistics earlier about our firm.
I did, yeah.
So how are we doing?
Well, so yeah, what would you guess? I think, here, our average tenure at the firm is 4.7 years.
4.7.
Yep.
Is that
You
good,
went
bad,
high.
or indifferent?
I'm not sure. I was just very surprised because you thought it was high. You thought it was actually higher than.
I thought it was 6 years. I guessed 6 when you asked me to guess. I don't think 6 is that far off from 4.7. What I would say, there's probably a break-even point somewhere. If when you're hiring an employee that they need to stay a certain length of time, for you to at least break even on them, and then everything you get after that point is sort of gravy. I would say let's round it to 5 years. Let's say if you would tell me that everybody I hired would stay at least 5 years, I'd take it.
Oh, absolutely. I think that tenure, actually, I was going through, we actually have a SHRM membership. You get that for us. And so in their winter edition, there's this quote when I was reading
What is SHRM?
SHRM is the Society of Human Resource Managers.
Okay.
So it helps us. It's actually a great little, and it's called, I think it's very inexpensive as memberships go.
Society of Human Resource Management.
Yeah, exactly. Or managers.
Managers.
And so in their winter magazine, I was reading, and it said, the ongoing labor shortage provides a strong incentive for firms to search for ways to expand their ability to recruit and retain workers. And so beyond what Finnegan says and beyond what we say, I think you need to listen to the recent statistics that are basically saying it's very important for you to keep your people, not just to keep them, but keep them engaged. And 5 years, I think, is great. Our Atticousin, Craig Goldenfarb, would say we just happen to hire a bunch of S's. But I think we have appropriate amount of turnover to counteract that. So
shout out. So my longest tenured employee, Melanie
Donaldson, your senior
paralegal. This summer, she and I will be together for 30 years.
That's crazy.
Fun story. When Melanie came to interview with me in 1995, she braved a rainstorm to get to the office. She showed up looking like a wet rat. Her hair was just soaking. She was a mess. She was a mess. And I made her sit in the waiting room an hour before I interviewed her because I had gotten behind on something. I don't know what the hell I was doing.
So you weren't just being mean.
I wasn't being mean intentionally, but she took it.
You
So
think,
she
Mark?
still rubs that in my face 30 years later.
Yeah, it gets cold, especially in these air-conditioned buildings in Houston. Like, that's some commitment, which obviously she has proven for 30 years.
Yes,
so.
yes.
So she's a huge instrumental part of this firm, and we're glad you made the right decision to hire her.
So anyway, 30 years of summer, we got to figure out what to do about that. But all right, so back to the topic. I'm full of digressions today, I've noticed.
That's okay. We're going to come back to the center. And so Finnegan says that he suggests 5 stay interview questions. And so we'll go through the way that he does it. Do you want to run through the 5 questions really quickly?
So I remember I liked some of them. One of mine was a little weird about. So question number 1, what do you look forward to each day when you commute to work? And I noticed he used the word commute. I like that question. Because you're starting on the positive. because this is a stay interview. This isn't an exit interview where you're just picking up the pieces and figuring out what went wrong. You want to start on the positive. What do you like about coming to work every day? I preach to my people all the time, our purpose is to help other people. That's what should get you out of bed in the morning, because we do, good work. We're the good guys. But beyond that, what is it you like about coming to work every day? Do you like, the fact that we have free coffee downstairs? Do you like, what do you like? What is it?
Yeah, that I love my job. That would be a hard one for me to answer,
Yeah.
Mark. I think I'm an engaged employee, but I just don't like that one.
Second question, what are you learning here? What do you want to learn? So again, a positive question. And that's ultimate employee engagement, about growth. Well, what does growth mean? That means learning new stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I struggle with this one too, guys. I'm sorry. Mark and I disagree on this, on these questions, and so you'll see why in our third segment we talk about what we do instead. One of the things that I struggle with, especially with our team, who, as we just discussed, I think they're fairly tenured. 5 years, if we're going to round up, is a very well tenured firm. It's very little for you to learn. There's not much, let's just call it in the SSD, Social Security Disability process. Hopefully you might find something different that the Social Security Administration is doing now. But for the most part, you're not really learning much. You're just learning a different way to soothe a different client.
I would disagree.
Okay.
I think there are lots of things that we could learn. I was just today was learning about some social services that would be helpful to our client, that would be great information to pass along to our clients who already have disability. So I think there's always things to learn if you look hard enough at it. I think stepping outside of the law and actually looking behind the curtain and what can we do to help our clients beyond just legal services is a valuable thing to learn. If nothing else, to find the resources for them. I today was looking up, how to find a social worker for somebody with autism. I didn't know how to do that. I learned something new today. I think our staff could do just the same. So I always think you can learn more.
I think you absolutely always can, but are we providing them? And I think that's the real question. Are we providing them the place to do it?
That's why you ask the question.
What's the next question that you think that Finnegan says we should ask, Mark?
Why do you stay here? That's a loaded question. You could get all kind of weird answers with that one.
All power to the man, because he's obviously very, he's much better at this than I am. I just can't imagine asking anyone that. Why do you stay here, Mark?
Because I have no choice.
Yeah, and that's what you're gonna get. Because I haven't found anything better.
Yeah,
oh my
everything
gosh.
better. I get that's a little bit of a weird question. This one's even better. The fourth question: when was the last time you thought about leaving us, and what prompted it? Okay, that's a loaded question.
That would require a lot of vulnerability on both parties.
First of all, nobody's going to give you an honest answer to that.
This morning, Mark, on the way to work. That was what I thought about on question one. What did I look forward to on my commute to this morning?
Exactly.
That's just all. Anyway, but I think let's try and put a positive spin to this. If you do have the right relationship with your employee, this is an easy one. And it's a great way to encourage vulnerability and candor in the conversation.
I guess you're never going to get an honest answer, in my opinion. The fifth question is the best question. What can I do to make your job better?
I like it.
What resources can I give you? Mm-hmm. What training can I give you? Yep. What circumstance could I help fix? What would make your life better?
Yeah, that's one of our exit questions, actually, and I mentioned it is, but do you have, not what resources can I give you? Because then but do you have the resources to do your best job? But then it's a yes or no. And if it's no, then what do you need? And sometimes, Mark, it's like, man, I really need a scanner. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know your scanner didn't work. And they're like, oh, well, it was just one of those tolerances. I got used to coming up to the big printer and printing from there, and you just, it's a little thing that you don't understand or you don't realize can make such a big difference.
Right. All right. So that was his questions. Mm-hmm. What do we do?
I think we're going to talk about that in our next segment.
Okay. So let's wrap this segment up for me. Tell me where we're going.
We're going to talk about what we did before, or where we're going is we're going to talk about what we did before EOS and kind of what we do now with EOS as a kind of our framework for our firm.
All right. And with that, we'll be right back.
I'm Marc Whitehead, a lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks so much for tuning into the Successful Barrister podcast.
We have a blast creating it.
And I hope you find it helpful. If our chats have sparked your interest, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com. That's Marc spelled with a C. And join the Successful Barrister newsletter. Even better, let's hop on a call. I'd love to chat about how we can collaborate, share ideas, or just catch up.
So we've kind of butchered what Finnegan had to say.
Oh, and we mean no disrespect. He's a very accomplished gentleman with a lot of credentials. He's the CEO of C-Suite Analytics and the Finnegan Institute. So obviously very well respected in this field.
Okay, good disclaimer. You try to get us not get us sued, but. So the point is, we love his concept. We weren't necessarily in love with the execution of it.
We adapted it to work for us. And so pre-EOS, I would say we did this in two different ways. One, when we were at a strategic point of our growth. And then, of course, there's the kind of, as we all end up being in that reactive scenario where you kind of hear through the grapevine that you've got an employee who's, unhappy. So why don't you talk, Marc, about kind of how we did it, or how we did stay interviews when we were at that kind of crucial inflection point?
So pre-EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, for those who don't know. So really, I'm not sure exactly if we had a systematized way of doing it. Again, the infamous grapevine, which is apparently every organization has to some extent.
The water cooler, absolutely.
The water cooler. You have to listen really closely. I'm not sure that we had a systematized way of doing it other than talking to people when we heard things, bringing them in, asking them the basic questions. How are you doing? Do you need any new resources?
Yep. So I don't know how you did it before me.
I don't know that we did.
So
it was very reactive.
Yep.
I can promise you it was very reactive. I heard something, I'd go talk to somebody. If I didn't hear anybody, I assume taking them to lunch periodically was good enough.
And I think that that's where you should be as the CEO. You certainly don't want to get into the weeds of every single rumor that's passing through the organization and what, everybody's whispering about, because that's obviously not your best use of your time. I'd say I've been here a little over 4 years now, so just shy of the average. And when I think the team learned to trust me, then I just became the open door for a lot of, let's say issues, complaints, and just questions. And I think I developed a relationship with the team to where they could come to me if there was some dissatisfaction of any kind. Diana, can we do this all staff better? Can we, I'm having this problem with my manager. How do I navigate this? And it was very much a conversation. And that's really how we did the reactive part of it.
I will say the brilliant part of this is, as me being the owner of the firm, it is good to have that layer between myself, and the staff when it comes to issues like HR.
Yeah.
Because, in one sense, as the leader of the firm, I kind of have to be above it. That's why, you have a vice principal in school in charge of discipline,
Yeah, it's not the principal.
It's not the principal. It's the vice principal that does it. And there's a reason for that. You need to keep a layer of separation there. Quite frankly, I need to be the good cop.
You do need to be the good cop. But also, when you're talking about the manager, when there's a problem, as we talked about with your direct supervisor, then you may not know how to approach that. Is it just me, or, what's going on? And I can provide a unique perspective that isn't... that is less, one-on-one right there. So
here's a question that I don't know the answer to, and maybe you have an idea. But my perception is when people might be unhappy, It could be they're unhappy about other people they're working with. In other words, you have a co-employee tiff, riff, something like that. Or they could be unhappy about other things, circumstances, resources, training, just the job in general. I'm going to guess that most of the problems tend to be people problems as opposed to situational problems. But I could be wrong because you are closer to it than I am. But those require a different set of problem solving. One, you have two sides to the story when you have a people problem. You might have 12 sides to the story. I don't know. When you have more of a resource problem or a training problem or just a job satisfaction problem, that's a process problem. That's a different type of problem.
Yep.
And you can kind of deal with it more directly.
Oh, yeah. I think I said this in my one of my interviews with you was, the people are the secret sauce. That's kind of the hardest part of the whole job that I do is if you can make your people, get them all focused, engaged, rowing in the same direction, then everything else falls into place. You can process your way around a lot of things, but you can't process your way around people because they have feelings and they have, just chips on their shoulders, whether they realize it or not. And so, yeah, they're two totally different problems, and we have both in the firm, as I imagine most people do. Right.
So we kind of went astray. So the basic premise that we started with was pre-EOS and post-EOS.
Well, and then pre-EOS, we did do it proactively. The reason why you assigned to me this book was because we were at a crucial, I'd say an inflection point of the firm where we were looking to hire a few strategic positions we needed to fill. We saw a gap growing in the firm, and we didn't know if we could fill those internally. And so we looked at the skill sets of all the people, a lot of our A players, right? And wanted to make sure that they were happy in their current position, that they weren't looking for additional responsibilities. And if they weren't looking for additional responsibilities, then that they were happy with their pay. Because, if they're happy with you and it's just a basic, as we all know, inflation's been a very real thing during my tenure here. So if they just couldn't make ends meet, but they're happy here, you wanted to know that beforehand. And so we didn't follow the stay interview format exactly, but we followed the heart of it, which is, can we have a conversation with you, please, team member, and be vulnerable about the fact that we really love having you here, and we want to do whatever it takes to keep you here, and what does that look like for you? And so that's how we did that, I think, pre-EOS in a very, I'd say, strategic, focused way.
Right. So the question becomes in that scenario is, the quiet people that you don't ever hear about or think about, and you don't hear anything about in the grapevine, and are we neglecting those people?
Yeah, you always want to know who your A players are, and I think we ask our attorneys this often, our leadership team, like, do you know who your vulnerable people are on your team, and are you okay with that if they're vulnerable, whether because they want to leave or you want them to leave, or which vice versa. So I do think that it's important for everyone to keep in mind that you're always, whether they're getting poached or whether they just are tired of, honestly, there's a lot of burnout that we deal with here at the firm. So I would also say that for those law firms that are at that weird point of their growth too, that strategic conversation using the stay format, it would be a great way to find what you would call like a team leader. So that's what a lot of our ADA cousins do when they're looking for that first person to run their firm. They'll pull their head paralegal or maybe one of their long tenured paralegals to either do a hybrid paralegal / team lead position before they can figure out whether or not it's a good fit, and then pull that person out into maybe a director of operations position. But promoting internally, if you're looking to do that, the stay interview is a great way to at least format there.
I keep going back to the issue of the people who don't say nothing. That those are the ones that are dangerous in the sense of they might just surprise you and shock you one day, up and leave. It's kind of like picking a jury. Back in the day, that was always taught. When you're doing voir dire and asking the jurors questions, it's the quiet ones that will always sink your case. So, you got to get them talking. You got to just make a special effort to go after the quiet ones. And sometimes I kind of relate that back to this process. It's the quiet ones you need to talk to. The ones who are not quiet, you're probably going to know anyway. So
I don't know. Sometimes I worry that you start probing with questions, you're gonna plant a seed that wasn't there in the first place.
Oh, here it is. Us again disagreeing.
I know, how shocking.
How shocking.
So do it in the just be careful. But anyway, with EOS, we've changed the way we do, I guess, in a much more strategic, or not strategic, but much more structured way.
Right. The name of the process that we do now, which is escaping me.
Oh, so we do the people analyzer.
The people analyzer. Thank you.
Quarterly.
I can't
That's
believe
okay.
I couldn't come up with that.
Well, it's your favorite EOS tool.
I know it really is not, but
So we do the people analyzer quarterly, and we're going to add the new EOS tool, the 555 tool. A lot of words here, listeners, to basically what, Mark?
So the people analyzer, the first thing you do is you start with evaluating the person quarterly. It's supposed to be quick, it's supposed to be 15 minutes. You start with on your core values. So we have 6 core values that we preach to our people constantly. So, and then we have a piece of paper which has the 6 core values plus the 3 questions. And I'll let you explain the 3 questions because I'm never quite sure I've quite totally gotten these down. But we have the employee evaluate themselves according to our 6 core values and the 3 questions. I do the same if I'm their direct report. If I only do it with my direct reports, and then everybody else does it with their direct reports, so they're to their managers. But we do this simultaneously together. It's real quick, takes 3 minutes to do it, and then we share our results with each other, and then we discuss it. What I've noticed is that I'm frequently a lot more generous with them than they are. They're harder on themselves than I am.
I think it depends on the team.
It really, I would say 9 times out of 10, they were harder on themselves than I am, which is great. I want them to be self-reflective. Again, I like being the good cop, but it allows us the opportunity then to have a discussion, and then a debrief over that. And where could they grow? What could we do to help? Go over the 3 questions at the end real quick, which I can never get down.
So they call it the GWC. Do you get it? Do you want it? And do you have the capacity for it? So that's the end of the people analyzer. The 555 tool, which we are adding in this quarter, discusses how they feel about their role, particularly like you're supposed to do it vis-a-vis the accountability chart, which is another EOS tool, but you do it their roles and their rocks and how they're doing with all those things. So you get a much more complete picture of what the employee is going through, both, I'd say, professionally with their rocks, and then the get it, want it capacity, the GWC part of it. I think you kind of figure out where they are, I'd say, emotionally, if you will, allow me to say that, touchy-feely stuff, how they're feeling both professionally and personally. Because the capacity part isn't, obviously, it's not mental capacity, listeners. It's about, do you have the time to do the job that is expected?
So can we break the GWC down a little bit? Because I still struggle with it.
Yeah. Do you get your job? Do you understand?
So first one is,
get it.
Do you get it? Do you get what your job is?
Do we have the same idea of what your job is? Do you get what your job is in this firm? Do you understand that?
Okay. That's GW. Do you
is
want
want
it?
it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's a good, I think a good valid question. And surprisingly, that's the one where I had people giving themselves a lot of negatives on.
Well, yeah. So the GWC portion of it is a straight, if you're not at 100% of the time, then you have to say it's a no. So that's why, the 100% rule is pretty strict in the EOS world.
Right. And I think that's where they follow. Like, yes, I want it, but half the time. I don't want to.
Yeah. I think you and I, when you did the people analyzer on me, I said no.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the first signs you look at when you're worried about burnout.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's the burnout question. You're looking to see whether your people are burning out.
And that's where I think that the stay interview kind of doesn't talk about that. Like,
Right.
Are you really, well, Why do you stay here? Well, why is the reason why you don't want to stay here? Maybe because I'm burnt out. I don't have any more emotional, and the C is the capacity for it. And that could be where I'm like, I can't care anymore for these clients. Because it's really starting to impact my ability. I take it home with me. I've had so many team members say, you know what, I can't, I worry about our clients that are telling me that they're going to be homeless if they don't get these benefits. I'm upset about the negative review after I did everything for this client. And it impacts them. We hire very compassionate people. And in this business that we do, I think that, as we've said before, our clients come to us at the worst times of their lives. Right. It can be tough.
Right. Clients are not necessarily always the most pleasant for very valid reasons.
Absolutely. And so our employees, they take that home with them. And so that's where the capacity part is. And I think that that's why it's been a lot more enlightening for our team members to do it in this format, because you get to the heart of where, not why are they considering leaving, but like what's impacting them while they're here? Why are they not engaged while they're here?
Okay. So we use this word engagement a lot. Why is this important?
You want your employees engaged because they're more productive at the end of the day.
Okay. And why do we want them to be more productive?
I don't know.
We want money.
Mr.
We want to be profitable. We want a stress-free life.
I think, but also more productive, just better customer service.
Right. And we want our clients happy. And again, which leads to more money and less stress.
Yep.
Happy client, happy life.
So I think the whole point of the podcast is, regardless of the way that you do it, that is it exactly. You want your employees engaged. And so if maybe there's another tool out there that some of our listeners could tell us about, please
would love to
let
hear
us know.
I think the key is being proactive.
Yeah.
It's all about being proactive. Do something.
Yeah.
Don't just sit around and get blindsided when your best person leaves you.
And try not to live in that reactive world, which is where we were before.
It is
because it'll burn you out too.
The biggest cause of burnout is constant reactivity, as opposed to being proactive. I firmly believe that. I coach my clients that way all the time. You must be proactive. You have to plan. You have to schedule. You have to be proactive. You have to lead. You can't just let life happen to you. You can't just let your practice happen to you. That's where burnout comes.
And that's how you lose good people.
And yes, and good people
regardless
see that.
Of whether they're getting poached.
Yes, I understand.
But I do think that that's a great way to end the podcast today.
All right, with that, our word to you today is be proactive. That's 2 words actually, but
yep, for engaged employees.
For engaged employees. All right, now we're up to 5 words. The phrase of the day. I like that. The phrase of the day is be proactive, keep your employees engaged. All right. With that, I'm getting the high sign that we are out of time. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Marc.
And I'm Diana.
And we are the dynamic duo of law. Remember to rate and review us. And I was told specifically by our producer, Pepper, to emphasize this point, to rate and review us. I've talked to a lot of you lately who've been listening to the podcast. And what I failed to do when we were having these personal conversations is, hey, get there and give us a 5-star review. We really need to get our reviews up. I have said we've gotten a lot of positive feedback over the last months.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Now review us. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. But finally, if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you tell your friends about it and visit us at successfulbarrister.com, and be sure to visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm, at disabilitydenials.com. And with that, we're out of here.
Bye.